in my membership community over there. Let's see who's joining us today. Hello guys, it's Laura here, and it is Thursday afternoon. I'll just admit people from the waiting room. Hi Fiona, hi Jessie. Great to see you here. Now, in today's session, because this week we're slightly focusing a little bit on the breath. And so I'm just turning off things that are pinging on my computer, things that are sending me little alerts. And you know, in every week with my membership community, we do, as you guys see over there, hello, you'll know, is that we have a focus, and we actually are expanding our practice and our experience all the time. And what I want to think about, the reason I want to think about the breath is because it's this back door to our nervous system. It's this way of being able to shift our state. When you think about breath work, that's all we're talking about, is intentionally and consciously managing your breath to optimize your health, your well-being, your mental state. And one of the most fundamental pieces of that is knowing how you currently breathe, because there's an optimum way to breathe, and then there's ways that we breathe. We have a tendency to breathe in our day-to-day lives, especially when we're under stress, that actually send the very wrong signals to our nervous system, because they actually reinforce that stress response. Because the way we hold our body and the way we breathe we become conditioned to breathing in a stressful way. Hi Claire, I know you like the breath work, Claire, so I think you'll like this session today. So we're going to close our eyes in a moment, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to describe, I just want you to observe your breath, and I'll just go through. There's basically 4 types of breather, and I just want to sort of describe them to you, and you can just examine your own natural breathing and see how do I breathe. And by doing that, we can start to then really consciously decide to shift that and move it towards diaphragm breathing, and I'll talk about what that is in a minute. And although you might think, well, I've come to meditate, Laura, this isn't really meditation. We're going to move into meditation as well, as we're using the breath. But actually, anything like this where we're choosing where to place our attention and we're really consciously aware, that is still a meditation practice, because you're harnessing our attention and we're training our mind. So let's before we close our eyes and talk about our breath and examine and really see what's happening with our breath, I just want to talk about your diaphragm, because the diaphragm is something that I didn't know much about. Whenever I heard people talk about the diaphragm, it kind of annoyed me, to be honest. I found it it sounded a bit sciencey and a bit kind of hi Judith, I don't know, it didn't really resonate for me. But as I found out more about the power of the diaphragm, it's become a bit more juicy, because it's really the anchor point for our breath, and therefore, as I said, for our nervous system. And it looks a little bit like a jellyfish. It's like an upside down jellyfish, or a parachute. I prefer a jellyfish. I like to think of a jellyfish. And so when we inhale, we've got this kind of, in fact you can stick your fingers under your ribs if you've got so many layers as I have, but if you stick your fingers under your ribs, it's basically there. It's like a sort of a trampoline, I always think of it as being a bit like a trampoline bed underneath your rib cage there, like basically holding your organs in. And it just, like a jellyfish, it just expands and contracts. So when we breathe in, it expands like this, and when we breathe out, it just relaxes. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And it's meant to be our primary breathing muscle. But what tends to happen is that we end up using the accessory muscles, and even higher up, the sort of muscles that are only supposed to be recruited when we're really stressed. We tend to use them all the time. So generally, when we're breathing, we're supposed to be just breathing with this diaphragm, and then we have the intercostal muscles between our rib cage that help to expand the rib cage to go with it, and then very gentle movement in our chest and our shoulders. And it's only really up here, breathing from up here and using all of these muscles, the neck and the top of the shoulders and the back of the shoulders, is when we're stressed. We kind of need that extra. It's like the sort of extra boost muscles, not the 24/7 breathing muscles. So and when we do use those muscles, that's when we get that incorrect trigger to our nervous system. So let's gently close down our eyes and just begin to pay attention to how you're breathing right now, and just allowing yourself to, first of all, just notice yourself sitting in the chair. Notice that you're in your room or wherever you are right now, feeling your hands in your lap. and you're breathing. Your body's breathing for you. You don't even need to make it happen. And I want you to really consciously let your body breathe for you. So we're not trying to force the breath or make it do anything. We just want to witness our natural breathing. Now, for some people, when they breathe, the breath starts high up in the upper chest. The shoulders rise, the chest puffs up, and the abdomen, the belly, pulls in towards the spine as they breathe in. So observe your inhale. And as maybe the muscles in the neck tense up. Maybe even as I describe this, you can imagine that kind of breathing. And when they breathe out, the belly expands. It's reverse breathing. So when they breathe in, the belly pulls in, the shoulders rise, and the breath is really high up. Maybe from injury or some kind of trauma, we can end up stuck in that kind of reverse breathing. And the next type of breathing is the chest breather. So similar to the reverse breather, when you inhale, your breath starts in the upper chest. Your shoulders rise, and your chest puffs out and upwards. Your mid to lower ribs expand sideways, and your abdomen doesn't really move very much, or it only moves just a little bit following the chest. And if we're breathing up there, using the chest and those lower ribs, we're relying too much on the secondary breathing muscles. And it can lead you to feeling stiff and tense. So if this is your default breathing, whether you're breathing that way now or you recognize that breathing, that's when you end up with tight shoulders, your tummy muscles are chronically tense. So many reasons. Most common breathing pattern for if you're not breathing in a more balanced way. And then there's the belly breather. You might think, well, this one is positive because you're breathing lower down in the body. But there's a forcing and control. So the movement starts in the belly. The shoulders stay still. The chest stays still. And the ribs hardly move. And the stomach rises really forcefully with the inhale. The sides of the abdomen pull inwards. So it's like a real focus, almost like extending the belly. We're using the abdomen, the muscles of the abs to breathe rather than the diaphragm, to force the belly outwards as you inhale. And it causes when you breathe with the belly muscles, it means that those intercostal muscles between the ribs don't bother to engage. So your rib cage becomes static, restricting the movement of your diaphragm. And the less you use it, the less you're able to use it. So the upper body becomes stiff and hard to move. And so you lose that diaphragm loses its ability to do what it needs to do. And the final category that we'll move on to think about is the optimum way. And this is what we're going to really allow ourselves to experience in this practice today. So when you inhale, the movement will begin in the diaphragm, just below the rib cage, around the bottom of the ribs. The chest expanding, following the movement of your lower ribs. And your shoulders staying mostly still. Your mid to lower ribs expand sideways as you breathe. The belly rising just passively following the movement of your ribs. So there's a rise in the belly, but it's gentle and it's almost a byproduct rather than what's causing the breath. So as we really focus in on this type of breathing, take our attention to that spot just below the ribs. Just keeping your attention there. See if you can almost visualize, if that helps you, or feeling in your body the diaphragm just gently contracting as you breathe in, the rib cage, the chest, and the belly just gently following. So rising up from the diaphragm, out to the side, with the shoulders barely moving. With each inhale, imagining a ripple that starts from that lower rib, rippling down to the belly and up through the chest. And just like a ripple, the movement becomes lower, lesser and lesser, the further away from that center. So the shoulders barely move, the lower body barely moves. It's a soft and gentle ripple effect. So as you breathe in, the belly and the ribs just gently rise. As you breathe out, they fall. And just to keep your awareness with the breath and with this anchoring to the breath, just gently noting in your mind rising and falling. So as you breathe in, rising. And as you breathe out, falling. There's no force or pushing or effort. It's just a gentle allowing of the breath. Rising, falling. Noticing as we breathe through the diaphragm that the breath naturally slows. We naturally increase the volume of breath, even as we slow the breath. So we breathe slower but more deeply. Rising, falling. Rising, falling. Rising, falling. Just keep gently noting that rising and falling. And if the mind's wandered, just gently bring it back to the breath. Using that rising and falling to just keep bringing the mind back. No judgment or effort. And letting go of the labeling now. And just coming back to an awareness of the rest of your body. Noticing your hands on your lap. Noticing the shoulder blades, the jaw, your feet on the floor. And taking a couple of big sighing breaths now. So breathing in through the nose. And then allowing it to sigh out of the mouth. And one more like that. Breathing in. And still letting it fill in from the base and then sighing out. And gently blinking open the eyes. And just noticing for a moment how it feels in your body, having had just a few rounds of breathing in a more balanced way. And hopefully you just become a little bit more aware as you go through your day. Where am I breathing today? How am I breathing right now? And can I tell my body that I can relax? Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you at 7:30 tomorrow morning if you can join me.